Hi there, and welcome back to the Business Beyond Borders podcast with me, Cynthia Dearin. Today I'm talking to Oriana Nasser, who is the Managing Director of Jerusalem Stone Group, which is based in Bethlehem in Palestine. Oriana was born in Palestine, but she did her tertiary studies in the United States, and she has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from San Francisco State University. As you'll hear on the show today, she was the only woman in her graduating class. And Oriana also has a postgrad qualification from the University of Harvard. Before she joined Jerusalem Stone Group, Oriana worked in communication and IT with private and foreign companies, and she also did a stint with the Palestinian Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation in Ramallah. My guest, Oriana, is unusual for a couple of reasons. Firstly, she runs a company that specialises in stone and marble quarrying, which, as you can imagine, is traditionally a really male-dominated field. The second thing that makes her unusual is that she does it in Palestine. And for anybody who doesn't know, this is a very challenging place to run a business from. And that's because Oriana's company is operating in a country which is technically under occupation. Palestine's economy is heavily reliant on foreign aid, and there are not many customers for stone and marble in the domestic market. The movement of goods and people across Palestinian borders is very heavily regulated by the Israeli authorities, and so the cost of transportation is very, very high. And as you'll hear on the show today, this creates some real headaches for a company that deals in large, bulky goods. The great news is that despite the challenges, Oriana and her husband have built a successful international business which has gone from strength to strength. So Oriana, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be there with you.
We're recording today. You're in Jerusalem, is that right?
I'm in Bethlehem city.
You're in Bethlehem City, and yeah. I am in Australia. So we've got a bit of a time difference going on, and we're recording from two very different places. And what is really exciting about this is that you are actually our first guest from the Middle East to come on the podcast. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be really interested in your story and in what you've got to say. And I wanted to go back in time a little bit to start with. And I wanted you to tell us about what life was like for you as a child growing up in Palestine. You know, what was it like? Because it's very different to some other parts of the world. And what was your dream when you were little?
Actually, I had an amazing childhood, amazing upbringing. Maybe I owe it to the family. I was raised with another two sisters and a boy. My parents never differentiated between raising girls or boy in a society that is more, that favors, if I may say, favors the boys over the girls. So I was pretty lucky. Growing up, also in the family, they emphasize education. So, like as a child, I always wanted to go to college, study something, be someone important. I didn't have a clear vision of what I wanted to be. Like I can't tell you I wanted to be an astronaut or like other kids may say. But for me, I know I wanted to be successful. As a young child, I wanted, like I could see a career, I could see myself like in a business suit. But of course, I couldn't differentiate back then whether being employed or having my own business. All I wanted to be is someone famous and successful.
And what did your parents tell you that made you feel that you could do that? I mean, you said that they treated you the same way as they treated your brothers. What were the kind of things they were telling you as you grew up?
It was normal, if I may say. Like, I know some families who would say, like, you can't do this because you're a girl. versus like we had like no limits. It wasn't like, I never heard that term. Like I see it now, unfortunately, in our society, like where girls are treated less, or like go fix your brother a breakfast, or go do something. You know, like now I see it, and thank God I've never experienced it before.
Yeah, so your parents were pretty encouraging by the sounds of it, and they were prompting you to do whatever you wanted to do.
Yes, and definitely to pursue an education. It was very important in my family to emphasize on schooling, getting good grades, like going to college. They always emphasized education.
And so when
the books were available, we went to good schools, good like extra books, stories, they invested in books and in education.
Yeah. And so you graduated from high school and you went on and you studied as an engineer, is that right?
Yes, I finished high school in Bethlehem, and then I went to the United States. I went to San Francisco State University, where I started, like for the first year also I was indecisive. I loved science, I loved physics and math. So I started my first year also not knowing what I really wanted to major in. That's also like I decided going through the first year and taking the university, the general ed that I had to take. I studied electrical engineering, which also was very uncommon for women to be in that field. I specialized in communication systems, which is more IT, but back then, IT wasn't a major yet. When I graduated, I was the only female to graduate in '96 from the electrical engineering department.
Wow. So you were the only woman, and you were a Middle Eastern woman in a class full of, I assume, mainly American guys.
American, and it was a mix. It was a mix in the engineering department. I had like a few women in some classes, but in the graduation, I recall in '96, I was the only female to graduate from the electrical engineering.
How did you feel?
It felt good, actually. It felt like I accomplished something.
So you graduated as an engineer, but what we're talking about today and where you have wound up is running a company which produces quarried stone and marble. So explain for me, how did that happen? 96, you're standing there on the podium graduating as the only woman in your field of electrical engineering in San Francisco. And then today you're back in Palestine running this company which makes stone and marble. How did you get from one place to the other?
Okay, it happened, of course it wasn't planned, and it happened over periods of years. Where I graduated, went back home, I got a job at a private company, and then I held a position at the Ministry of Interior and International Affairs. I also worked with international companies with my field. So that was during the span of 6-7 years. After that, after my last job, the company closed down, and I was in between jobs, or what I like to call in between jobs. I had my first child.
Yes.
So I decided to take my time to raise my first child, and then I had my second child, and also then I was a full-time mom raising my 2 children. It was until my second child turned 2 that I sent him to daycare. And this is where it all started. I decided the company wasn't as big as it is today. It was an engineering office that was run by my husband, and he had started with the stone business By his visits and travels to the US, he found the need for the Palestinian stone. And by the way, the Palestinian stone is very good known for its good characteristic, and it's sold worldwide. So he started very small back then, and he was exporting. We were producing on a small scale. And after I sent my child to daycare, I decided that I wanted to help, in between brackets. So I went to the office, and this is how it all started. I started with the accounting, with the finances, then production, that I got more familiar with the whole process, and I liked it. I never imagined that I would go, like, it happened without even thinking, like from one task to another, from having like a position, from expanding the company. And we're talking since 2008 till like 2018 today. And here am I running the company. We've expanded a lot, added more international markets. So now I'm in charge of import and export, human resources.
And so when your husband started, he was alone. How big is the company today, 10 years later?
Well, the factory expanded a lot. We were adding more machinery. And I'm very proud to say that Jerusalem Stone Group is the first Palestinian company to use CNC machinery with the production. The already famous wanted Palestinian stone is now produced with top of the line CNC Italian machinery that gives stone carvings. We give architectural elements, the columns, like the ancient building. It's all produced using the Palestinian stones with high-tech machinery.
And how many people work with you today, Oriana?
Between management and workers, we're talking about 30 to 40 employees, and sometimes even more with the part-time and the temp employees.
So it's grown very significantly over that decade.
It is sure growing.
Now, on this podcast, I'm really interested to get the story about how people took their company international. And so I want to sort of turn to that now. And I was wondering whether you could tell me about how Jerusalem Stone Group started to export internationally. Where did the idea to sell your quarried stone and marble overseas come from?
It came up by visiting the United States and finding out that there is the need, there is a good market for the Palestinian stone. So we attended a stone expo, specialized in stone, and we had a very nice display to display our work. And this is how it all started, by people visiting the booth, getting our information, and later on, when we came back, we wrote them, we contacted them, and we ended up getting quite a few projects.
All from that one show, all from that one trade show?
Yes, wow. Yes. And since we were listed in the directory as well, like some people who didn't attend could see that, by Googling us, by looking for our products, they could find us.
Now, what were those first few international sales like? Was it easy to sell your goods to people, or did you run up against challenges?
Nothing is easy at first. It's a learning process. Now I can tell you between different countries what they require. The import and export procedure is different from one country to another. nothing is as easy at first, but we were able to enter the US market. Our quality and finishes is so high that we can compete in the US market. Also, we have a very good market in the Gulf area, where we exported to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, in the UAE. Also, Qatar is a very good market as well. There they like the old style, the ancient style, and there is they build the big commercial buildings, or the private residential buildings are huge, and in need of such stone.
So let me just ask you a bit more about those early sales. Tell me about what was challenging, specifically when you went to those first international customers. What were the things that you found challenging? Was it actually working with people from the States, or was it regulations, or was it import-export rules, or was it actually getting the stone out of Palestine? What were the things that you found most difficult at the start?
The export procedure is different according to the country. From Bethlehem, when we export to the United States, we need to go to use the Israeli ports.
Yes.
And where we have to transport the stone inland to reach the Israeli port, and there it gets processed in very high security. Where we move the container from the Palestinian truck to an Israeli truck that could enter the Israeli port. So that's extra cost on transportation, which the price is already very high for us in Palestine. Also security checking, security clearance. Also depending on the country that we're exporting to, like for the United States, the wood has to be fumigated. We have to get fumigation certificate for the pallets to enter the United States. So it's different from one country to another. Yes. We've also exported to Europe. Europe also, the paperwork is also different. And also we do it through the Israeli ports to Europe.
But it sounds to me as though the actual process of finding international customers has been quite straightforward for you. Would you say that's right?
Straightforward? No, contrary. Attending the international shows is very expensive for us. Yes. Like where we have to pay for the exhibition itself, and there you pay per square meter. And with our product, we need a big display, so it has to be like quite a decent space to be able to display our showcase. So that costs a lot. Plus, we have to ship all of the products, and also build it there. So that's very expensive attending a show.
Now, today, Jerusalem Stone Group exports more than 90% of its production and sends it all around the world. What strategies did you use to go from those first few clients that you had to now where almost everything you produce is sent overseas?
We're always researching and looking for new markets, new countries where there is demand for the natural limestone. And we take it further. We've also worked on our marketing through social media, through our webpage and Facebook page. Sometimes we get some customers, and usually I ask the question, how did you find about us? Why us? And some customers, they go on Google and they Google Palestinian stone, and we appear. They contact us, and we're pretty good in replying right away or as soon as possible. And sometimes it works, and sometimes they don't take the prices, or they find it too expensive, or they use something else.
Now, I'm surprised that you say that social media works for quarried stone. That's quite unexpected. Tell me a bit about which social channels you find work for selling the kinds of things that you sell.
Our Facebook page, actually, and it's very easy to update. So any project we have, any product, we just upload it and we try to keep it updated as possible. And we get quite good reviews and views as well.
That's pretty cool. So these days, which markets are you exporting to? So you mentioned specifically the United States and Europe. Are there specific countries in Europe that you export to? And where else are you sending your stone and marble to?
In Europe, we've sent to Scotland, to London, recently we've sent to even Switzerland. It was a small order, not a full container. We sent to Switzerland, but the European market is also a target for me to expand in the European market. I believe we can do more.
Yes.
My main export nowadays is for the Gulf area.
And is that easier because it's closer?
It's not closer, it's different because we use land transportation to ship there. Our trucks go through Jordan, and from Jordan it goes on a Jordanian truck for the transportation company that we work with. And from there it gets through Saudi Arabia and off to UAE, off to Oman, off to Kuwait. It's faster. I don't know if it's easier, but it's definitely faster.
I want to change direction a little bit now, and I want to ask you about the fact that you built Jerusalem Stone Group with your husband. Now that takes quite some doing to actually run a business, with your partner and also have a life with them. But I mean, you are doing well at this business and you seem to be a really good team. And as I understand it, each of you handles specific tasks. How did you decide who would do what? And what is it like working together at the same company?
Before I answer your question, I must admit that I'm a person who was against working with the husband. Like all the years that I was a stay-at-home mom, like he always said, there's room for help, you can do something, and I just refused to. It was really against my ideas of being independent. But when I did it, I don't think who does what. I think like by nature, like whatever I'm good in, I'm doing, and whatever he's good in, he's doing. And I feel that it's a complete circle, if I may say. Like we complete each other and we complete the tasks that need to be done, each having his own personality. And the most important thing is that I still feel that I'm independent. I'm still able to take my own decisions. Of course, sometimes I go back to him for his opinion, but the decision at the end I can do. Like he doesn't impose anything on me, which is great. And I find that like we separate, like we try as much as we can to separate like work from personal, from home. But like sometimes we take work home and we're still discussing and talking about things because believe it or not, we do work at the same company, but certain days I'm at management offices and he's in the quarries or he's at the factory where I don't see him, we don't meet all day.
So what does
at the end of the day, we give each other the summaries of the day.
Yes. And so what do you do? Just tell us a little bit about what you do and what your husband does at the company.
What I do is I take care of import and export. I take care of marketing. I follow up with the customers. What he does is he's good at buying the stones from the quarries. It's something that I'm not so good at until this day, I have to admit. Like I can't, when looking at a block of stones, I don't know if that's good quality or not. sometimes if a project requires traveling, he travels more than I do because I don't like leaving the kids during school days, you know.
Yes.
So he does the traveling, or sometimes we split. Like if we have to be two countries, like we split who goes where. I run the human resources in the company, where I had to learn by reading about the labor laws in order to apply it. Import, export. That's about it.
That's really interesting to see how you divide the work between you. And we've just touched on, you know, your children and how you sometimes have to make decisions about whether to travel or whether to stay home. Tell me a bit more about how you have, you know, managed family commitments, because obviously your children were still pretty small when you started to work at the company. How did you balance the demands of work and having small children?
Actually, it was a big challenge for me. It's the most challenging issue that I faced. Of course, I wanted to be the perfect mom, not have them pay for the price that I'm spending the hours at work. So it was lots of physical work for me. I was lucky because my parents were helpful when my kids were young. My mom helped with the food, with like sometimes when I needed to leave my kids and travel somewhere, she would take them for a few days. I tried to be the perfect mom, the perfect businesswoman, and maybe that took the toll from me and my personal time back then. Like I didn't have time for me as a person, you know. I was the businesswoman, I was the full-time mother, and I didn't have much time for me. But now it's getting easier as they're growing.
And I think lots of people listening to this interview will really find that resonates with them, because I get a lot of questions from other women who are running their businesses and thinking about expanding internationally, and they say, how is it possible that we can juggle a family and also expand the business internationally? You know, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on how do you do that? You know, what are your tips for people who are thinking about doing this? I mean, obviously you can really do it because you've done it. Tell us about some of the specific things that you did when you were so short on time to manage, you know, being the best mom that you could and also the best businesswoman that you could be.
I encourage other women to do it. Like certain days I had to get my children to work with me. Like I remember my son opening the door and walking in when I was in an important meeting. But you know what? It's not the end of the world. It was cute. It was nice back then. I think people understand that businesswomen are also moms. It shouldn't be something to hold women back at all. Like one day you're not going to be able to prepare the meal. So what? It's okay. You buy food from the outside, from a restaurant. You order out. Some days you can't attend. It's fine. Like if your child is sick, so what if you cancel a few meetings for the day? You make it up the next day. I really encourage all women to do it. It shouldn't be the excuse for us not pursuing our business, our dreams, our careers. So many moms are doing it nowadays. Even in Palestine, there's more demand for daycare system where almost everybody's sending to daycare so they can work. Households nowadays, they can't afford on living on one salary or one person working. I think when there's a will, there's a way, to sum it up.
And I think that's really refreshing, you know, that you just have a philosophy where you don't worry too much and you just do what you can manage on all fronts. And if it's not perfect, well, that, you know, that's okay as well.
Definitely.
Let's talk a bit about inspiration, because you've been on a fairly impressive journey. I was wondering, are there particular people in your life or public figures or, you know, inspirational people who you've looked up to as you've gone on the journey?
That's a tough question to answer. The way I look at it is I always look at, if you want to call it, a better version of me.
Okay.
So I'm constantly working on improving myself on all aspects, right? So this person, this better version of me, I'm always looking forward to see. As for people who inspire me, I think it's little things and little people are my inspirations. I'll give you an example. Last month, I was asked to be as a mentor in an event that took place in Ramallah. And the mentees were such an inspiration to me. Really, with the ideas they had, with the steps they're taking, the small businesses they're having, really they're an inspiration. Also, another thing, some people who come up with ideas from nothing, maybe they're not famous people for me to mention names or tell you role models or people in who are leaders nowadays, but really some women are trying, they are doing something out of nothing and really supporting their families and kids. They're really an inspiration to me.
Yeah. I like that. What about books? Do you have books that have helped you on the journey? You know, favorite books that you've read either recently or a long time ago that have taught you something special or that you recommend? And I mean, they can be any books. They don't have to be business books, but just books that you have loved and have helped you in your life and in your business journey.
I love books. I grew up with books, and it's something that also I am trying to also give to my kids to read. I wish I had more time to spend reading books. I do read in both Arabic and English. I read novels sometimes. A book that I read not too long ago was 40 Rules of Love for Elif Shafak, that I recommend everybody. I think almost everybody read it by now, but if somebody didn't read it, I really recommend that they read. I also read books for human development, for neurolinguistic programming as well, and I find it very useful. It's there's always room for improvement. I love these books. I really gain a lot from reading the self-development books, or sometimes I even take courses. This is what I call me time. It's the time that I spend for me.
Yes.
And this is how I spend it.
And with the NLP books that you've just mentioned, is there a particular title that you suggest people read?
Just any book, any good book on that topic. I took a course, and it was like a summary of that the instructor prepared from different books, different authors. I think any book is really helpful. It makes you think, like for me, what I really think, and this is what I tell everybody, you don't have to have something set in your life. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to study. I never imagined that I will end up where I am today. And just follow your heart, follow your dreams. Any person who is not happy, who is running a business and not happy with it, it's never too late to change. I really think a person should be passionate about what they're doing in their lives. Life is too short to be spent in something that we don't enjoy. We won't be as productive if we go to work and make good money and not really enjoy what we're doing at the end of the day.
Yeah. So Oriana, your journey has been a really impressive and a really inspiring one. And we haven't really talked much about the actual difficulty of working in Palestine. So I'm not sure whether a lot of people listening to this will get a real sense of how difficult it is to run a business as a Palestinian person. But since I've raised that, I wonder if you could just give us a sense. I mean, if you had to compare running your business in Palestine now to running the same or a similar kind of business in the United States, for example, how do you think it would compare? Just, I would like to give people a sense of how difficult it can be to actually operate a business in Palestine at the moment.
It is quite difficult because we're very restriction of movement, whether it's for the stone that we buy, moving it to our factory, or even moving the containers. Like I mentioned before, it's a whole process where we have to exchange trucks, moving it. Another big issue would be also importing. 2 years ago, we added to the factory 2 big robot machines from Italy. It was quite a big deal getting these machines into the Palestinian territories where we had to get clearance. They had to check the machineries, make sure that they're only used for stones. Sometimes, like, we need spare parts, or like one part of the machine gets broken and we need to replace it. We order it from Italy, and it takes a long time for us to be able to receive it. And once we receive it in Israel, it takes even longer to process it, to get security clearance to use it. So sometimes, like, the machine is stopped for quite a long time, and I have an order and we can't use it.
Are we talking weeks or are we talking months?
It could be months sometimes. It could be months. That's even if we're lucky to receive the parts. Some parts that are rejected, they won't even let it in. Another issue, like when we first installed it, we needed the technicians to come to start these machineries. It was also difficult getting visas for the experts to come and run the machines at first.
So how do you find the kind of the patience to deal with those, you know, those challenges which are not likely to go away anytime soon?
Well, you take it as it comes. You have to be really, really patient because you don't have a plan B or a second option. So I'm usually persistent. If I need something, we keep making phone calls, getting information, all the information needed. I think persistence and being patient is the key to solving these problems.
So Oriana, where to from here? I mean, what is next for Jerusalem Stone Group, and what is next for you as Oriana Nasser?
What is next for Jerusalem Stone Group? This year in 2018, we'll be adding more machines to the factory in order to be able to produce on a bigger scale, bigger quantities. And the second part is where next to me. I have like so many ideas, especially when I travel, like from small ideas to big. definitely there's going to be something new. I don't know what yet. It might be a whole new business, not in the stone business. I'm taking a couple of years for the kids to be able to go to college, and then definitely there's going to be something new for me as Oriana, as a person.
And if people would like to get in touch with you and, hear more about your story, or maybe buy some marble or some stone, how should they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Through email, through the webpage that we have. They can visit our site at www.jsg.ps. And hopefully after this interview, Australia would be the new market for me.
Yeah, we can definitely hope so. We can definitely hope. Look, it has been great to have you on the show, and it's fantastic to have a female business entrepreneur doing business in one of the toughest parts of the world on the show, demonstrating that it is actually possible even when things are not straightforward. I was just wondering whether you could share with us any final thoughts that you have for women entrepreneurs who are looking to go global. And it might apply to women anywhere, or maybe you have a special message for women in the Middle East who are thinking, can I really take my business overseas?
Actually, I would like to thank you for having me on the show, and it's a real pleasure to know that I'm the first Middle Eastern woman to be hosted on your show. My message to all women, whether in the Middle East or anywhere, really pursue your dream. Nothing is impossible to achieve. And a strong message would be, especially for women in Palestine and the Middle East, don't be afraid to try, because women here are afraid to not be able to make it, not to succeed, because everybody's going to be waiting and pointing the fingers to say that she failed, she didn't make it. And so what? Like, always think of success, but if one business doesn't work, really, it's not the end of the world. Try something else, another idea. Start really small and then go bigger. There's nothing wrong with trying. It's wrong to have all these great ideas and to keep them as ideas. Really, pursue your dream, take it to the next level, and don't be afraid. And one step at a time, you can make it.
Oriana, it's been fantastic chatting to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the Business Beyond Borders podcast and you're thinking about expanding your company internationally, you might want to check out the International Business Accelerator, which is something I created to help micro to medium-sized businesses to speed up and de-risk the process of internationalization. The International Business Accelerator, or as we like to call it, the IBA, is a program built on the three principles of skills and knowledge, mentoring and accountability, and community. I built it especially for founders and CEOs who want to take their business to the next level and are wondering where to start. The program is structured in a way that's simple to follow. It's digital, so you can take part from anywhere in the world. It's a lot of fun and our members love it. So if that's you, if you're thinking about going global, check it out at internationalbusinessaccelerator.com.